There are things people carry in the quiet, small sentences that never found a doorway into the world. A truth they softened, a need they swallowed, a boundary they blurred to keep the peace. And though the moment passed, the body kept a memory of that silence, like a room where the lights were never turned on. Over time, these unsaid words become echoes. Not loud, not sharp, just persistent. A tug beneath everyday thoughts, a heaviness beneath simple choices. Because the mind always remembers what the mouth refused to shape. And so a person grows older, learning to navigate life with a strange companion, the ghost of everything they meant to say, but didn't. A quiet ache that keeps returning, asking to be understood, not rewritten. There is a moment, barely noticeable at first, when the words rise inside you like a small wave. A truth forming itself, rehearsing its edges, testing the shape of being spoken. You feel it in the slight tightening beneath your ribs, in the quiet quickening of your breath. The body prepares for honesty long before the mind gives permission. And yet, something holds you still, an invisible hand resting on your voice. A quiet calculation begins, almost automatic. If I say it, will they turn away? Will something break? Will I regret being seen? Will this truth cost more than silence? You don't answer those questions consciously. The mind moves too quickly. Instead, you just feel a soft collapse inside, a folding inward, a retreat. And so the words remain, suspended, unreleased. It happens in ordinary places, a kitchen, a living room, a car seat, somewhere between a question and an almost answer. Someone asks how you're doing, and you hear yourself say, "I'm fine," though your chest is carrying storms. Someone crosses a boundary, and you let it blur because you don't want the air to shift. Someone hurts you, even unintentionally, and your instinct is not to confront, but to cushion the moment for them, even if it costs you. People imagine silence as passive, but in truth, it is an active process, a labor, a constant negotiation between who you are and who you fear becoming if you speak. Inside, the swallowed words don't disappear. They settle, they sink, they begin to crystallize into memories that never stop replaying, not because they were dramatic, but because they were unfinished. The body loves completion. So does the mind. But silence leaves everything halfway. A sentence without punctuation. A door that was never fully opened or fully shut. You tell yourself, it wasn't important. It wasn't the right time. They wouldn't have understood. You were protecting peace. You were being considerate. You were avoiding conflict that your nervous system wasn't prepared to hold. There's always a reason. And every reason feels valid in the moment. But later, sometimes days, sometimes yours, you feel the echo return. Not with anger, not with regret, just with a quiet heaviness. There was something I needed to say, and I didn't. What makes the moment unforgettable is not what happened outside of you, but what happened inside. A tiny self abandoned its own truth. A part of you stepped back, choosing safety over authenticity. It is here, in these near invisible moments, where lifelong patterns begin. One silence makes room for another, and another. Soon, you are someone who knows how to speak in every situation, except the ones that matter. But the story does not begin with weakness. It begins with protection, with survival, with a heart trying to navigate the world the best way it knows how. The moment you swallowed the words was never a failure. It was a message, a signal that something inside you was afraid, overwhelmed, or unsure of its right to exist. This chapter is not a judgment. It is a starting point, a soft acknowledgement that somewhere in your history, speech and safety became intertwined, and silence felt like the gentler choice. The moment you didn't speak is not the end of anything. It is the doorway into understanding everything that followed. Silence rarely begins in adulthood. It has roots deeper than memory, woven into the earliest moments you learned how the world responded to your voice. A child is born fluent in expression, crying, laughing, pointing, reaching. Before language forms, truth flows freely. But then the world replies, sometimes gently, sometimes indifferently, sometimes with sharpness that leaves marks no one else can see. And slowly, a child learns the emotional economy of their environment. Which feelings are welcome, which questions are safe, which needs are too heavy for the room. Silence is taught without lessons. It is absorbed. It is modeled. It is mirrored. Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were treated like fragile glass, beautiful but breakable, where everyone tiptoed around conflict as though honesty might shatter something that couldn't be put back together. Or perhaps your household was loud in all the wrong ways, where words were weapons, where vulnerability was punished, where speaking your truth felt like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. Some people learned silence through cultural expectations, respect, obedience, don't make a scene. Others learned it through subtle emotional cues, a parent sighing at your questions, a teacher dismissing your contributions, friends laughing at your uncertainty. And some learned silence because their sensitivity was never understood. They felt too much, too deeply, too quickly, and the world told them to toughen up, as if sensitivity was a flaw rather than a finely tuned instrument. In all these environments, a child begins to associate speech with risk. Not always physical risk, often emotional. The risk of being misunderstood, the risk of disappointing someone, the risk of being told that what you feel doesn't make sense. So the child adapts by softening their voice, by choosing silence, by translating their vibrant inner world into something muted and manageable. This adaptation becomes a survival strategy, a shield crafted from quietness, a way of staying safe, staying loved, staying acceptable. And because children do not yet understand that environments can be flawed, they assume they are the ones who need to adjust. So they shrink parts of themselves without realizing it. A child who feared rejection becomes an adult who overthinks every sentence. A child who was scolded for speaking becomes an adult who apologizes before expressing anything. A child who learned to keep the peace becomes an adult whose silence becomes their default identity. In this way, emotional patterns do not feel like patterns. They feel like personality. But beneath that personality lies a history of rooms where you learned your voice was either too much or not enough. A history of people who taught you, directly or indirectly, that your inner world needed to be edited before it could be shared. Silence is not born from weakness. It is born from adaptation, from trying to belong, from wanting to be safe, from yearning to be loved in the only way you knew how. When you recognize where your silence began, you begin to separate the past from the present. You begin to see that the softening of your voice was not a flaw of character, but a response to your environment. Understanding this origin is not about blame. It is about clarity. And clarity is the first step in loosening the lifelong echo of words that never had the chance to come alive. There is a science to the words that never leave your mouth. a quiet choreography between the brain, the body, and the instinct for self-preservation. When the urge to speak arrives, something remarkable happens inside you. The amygdala scans the moment for danger, not physical danger, but emotional threat, rejection, disapproval, conflict, loss of connection. To the brain, these emotional risks can feel as threatening as actual danger, and so it responds the same way. It activates the stress response. Heart rate rises, muscles draw tight, breath shortens, the mind becomes crowded with possibilities. Suddenly, speaking no longer feels simple. It feels consequential. This is not overthinking. This is biology. Humans are wired to protect attachment above nearly everything else. Relationships meant survival. Being socially accepted meant safety. So the brain evolved a mechanism. If honesty threatens attachment, choose silence. This is why the unsaid often feels safer than the spoken. Why expressing a need can feel like exposure. Why saying, "that hurt me," or "I need more," or "this boundary matters," feels as though it might alter the emotional ecosystem you rely on. In psychology, the gap between what you feel and what you express is called incongruence. It creates cognitive dissonance, a tension between your inner world and your outer behavior. If this happens occasionally, the mind adjusts. But when silence becomes habitual, the tension becomes part of you. It shapes how you see yourself, how you relate to others, how safe you feel in your own truth. Emotional suppression doesn't erase feelings, it preserves them. The brain stores incomplete emotional experiences, waiting for resolution that never comes. This is why unsaid words return in memories, dreams, and quiet moments. Not to torment you, but because the brain is trying, constantly, to finish the unfinished. There is also the matter of mirror neurons, which make people deeply attuned to others' emotions. Those who stay silent are often the ones who feel most responsible for the harmony of the room. They sense tension before it's spoken. They feel discomfort that isn't theirs. They instinctively prioritize external peace over internal truth. In attachment theory, this pattern is common among those who learned to anticipate others' needs as a way to maintain connection. It is not oversensitivity. It is hyper-attunement, a deeply intelligent form of emotional awareness, one that was once necessary, one that now keeps you silent. Yet silence comes with a cost. Research shows that unexpressed feelings increase stress, impair memory, and blur emotional boundaries. The body remembers the pressure of unspoken truth the way the chest remembers breath that was never released. But again, this is not pathology. This is protection. Your silence is a psychological shield designed long before you had language to understand it. The psychology of the unspoken is not a story of weakness. It is the story of how the mind navigates vulnerability, how it calculates risk, how it chooses safety, even at the expense of authenticity. When viewed through this lens, every unsaid word becomes part of a map revealing where you learned to fear being seen, where you learned to hold yourself back, where you learned that silence was the safest form of survival. Understanding this map is not about forcing speech. It is about realizing that the echo inside you is not a mistake. It is a message from a nervous system that has been protecting you for years. It is whispering that something inside still wants to be heard. Inside every unspoken truth lies a quiet war. A part of you longing to speak collides with a part of you terrified of the consequences. This conflict is not dramatic. It is subtle, almost invisible to others. A pause before answering, a hesitation before sharing, a soft smile given instead of a real response. You feel the tension in the way your body shifts, leaning forward with desire to express, pulling back with fear of exposure. There is the voice inside that whispers, "Say it." Tell them. Speak your truth. And then the other voice arrives, more practiced, more familiar. Be careful. Don't ruin this. Don't be too much. The mind becomes a negotiation table where no agreement is ever reached. The conflict grows sharper when emotional stakes are high. The closer someone is to you, the harder it feels to be honest. Strangers are easy. The heart is not at risk. But with people who matter, silence becomes heavier. Because speaking your truth means showing your edges. It means revealing where you are hurt, where you are longing, where you are human. And somewhere deep inside, you have learned that vulnerability does not guarantee understanding. So you hold back. You swallow the words. You tell yourself it's not worth the disruption, the awkwardness, the possible misunderstanding. But afterward, the echo returns. It always does. Unsaid words do not disappear. They recycle, they replay, they sharpen themselves in the quiet. You imagine the moment again and again, how you could have said it, how the conversation might have unfolded, how maybe, just maybe, you would have been met with kindness. But you'll never know. And that is its own ache. This inner conflict becomes a pattern, one that shapes your relationships in subtle ways. People may see you as calm, easygoing, unbothered, not knowing that beneath the surface, you carry entire dialogues that never happened. You become the person who absorbs discomfort rather than risks creating it. The one who forgives quickly, even when hurt lingers. The one who prioritizes harmony over honesty. But inside, resentment begins to form, not sharp or explosive, but soft and slow, like sediment settling at the bottom of a river. Resentment born not from what others did, but from what you couldn't bring yourself to say. The inner conflict is not just emotional, it is existential. It questions whether your truth deserves air, whether your needs deserve space, whether your voice holds weight in the world. And the most painful part is not the silence itself. It is the belief that speaking would have made things worse. Yet beneath all this turmoil lies something tender, the part of you that wants to be known. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just accurately. A part of you wants to exist out loud, to show up fully, to feel the freedom of saying what you feel without bracing for loss. This chapter of inner conflict is not meant to expose weakness, but to reveal the profound intelligence of your emotional system. You have been navigating survival and connection with extraordinary sensitivity. You have been protecting your heart the only way you knew how. But somewhere amid the conflict, a quiet truth begins to form. Silence was your shelter, but it has also become your cage. This realization becomes the first tremor in a deeper awakening. There comes a quiet point in life, sometimes sudden, sometimes decades in the making, when silence no longer feels like safety. It feels like suffocation, not dramatic, just heavy. A weight you recognize only because one day you finally feel tired enough to notice it. The echo that followed you for years begins to shift. It no longer whispers. It calls. It insists. Sometimes it happens in a familiar moment, a conversation where you hear yourself minimizing your feelings again, or smiling while something inside you pulls downward, or saying it's okay, though the truth is anything but. Other times, the realization arrives in an unexpected stillness, in the shower, on a late-night walk, while lying awake in a dim room, feeling the soft thrum of your own unmet needs. A simple thought arises. I can't keep doing this. Not as a threat, not as a dramatic proclamation, but as a quiet truth. An internal shift that no longer asks for permission. The echo has grown loud enough that you can no longer pretend it isn't there. It has become part of your emotional landscape. Not an intruder, but a messenger. In psychology, this shift is often described as a boundary awakening, a moment when your nervous system starts refusing the emotional patterns it once tolerated. You begin noticing the small betrayals of your own silence, how drained you feel after conversations where you don't show up fully, how lonely it is to keep your inner world hidden, how painful it is to carry resentment that has nowhere to go. There is also a growing awareness that the people you fear losing do not actually know the version of you that fears losing them. This realization is tender. It is not a demand for confrontation. It is simply the recognition that you have been present everywhere, except in your own truth. Sometimes the turning point emerges through loss, a friendship that fades, a relationship that fractures, a moment of regret so heavy it anchors itself in the chest. Not because you spoke, but because you didn't. The echo grows loudest when the cost of silence becomes clearer than the fear of expression. And in that clarity, a profound question forms. What is the point of protecting peace that doesn't include me? You begin to see that silence hasn't prevented conflict. It has only postponed it. It has only turned conflict inward, leaving you to carry the weight alone. This moment of awakening is not about becoming bold or fearless. It is about becoming honest with yourself first. You start recognizing the difference between harmony and self-erasure, between compassion and self-neglect, between patience and avoidance, and the echo, once a quiet ache, becomes a guide. It reveals the places where you never felt safe speaking. It shows you the truths you abandoned. It highlights the parts of yourself waiting to return. The turning point does not require you to speak aloud. It only asks you to finally listen inward, to notice the longing, the exhaustion, the quiet hunger for authenticity. This chapter marks the beginning of a transformation that is not loud or visible. It is internal, foundational, a subtle shift from survival to self-recognition. For the first time, the question changes from what will happen if I speak to what will happen if I continue not to. And once that question appears, silence, once your safest place, begins to feel too small for the person you are becoming. When the echo becomes too loud to ignore, something gentle begins to unfold inside you. Not a sudden transformation, not a burst of bravery, but a quiet curiosity. What if my voice has value? You begin to recognize that speaking is not an act of confrontation. It is an act of alignment, a way of letting your inner world meet the outer one without distortion. But learning to speak after years of silence is delicate. It requires learning a new language, the language of yourself. This language begins with noticing the tightness in your throat when you want to express something, noticing the way your heart speeds up when you consider sharing a need, noticing your instinct to apologize before saying anything real. These small sensations are not obstacles, they are signals. Your body is showing you where old patterns still live. In time, you begin translating your internal experience more clearly. You start identifying what emotions actually mean, not what you think they should mean. You learn the difference between sadness and overwhelm, between anger and hurt, between disappointment and fear. Emotional literacy becomes a compass, not for dramatic expression, but for truthful expression. And for the first time, you begin to understand that your feelings are not demands. They are information, signals from a deeper part of you that has been speaking softly for years. This awareness brings a kind of softening, because the more you understand your internal world, the less threatening it feels to share pieces of it. Healing does not arrive as a sudden courage to confront others. It arrives as a subtle shift in how you relate to yourself. You stop judging your needs as burdens. You stop treating your emotions as inconveniences. You stop apologizing for the space your truth occupies. And slowly, the internal permission begins to form. It's okay to speak. It's okay to be seen. It's okay to want to be understood. You also begin to recognize that not every truth needs an audience. Some truths only need acknowledgement from you. Some words are meant to be written, not spoken. Some feelings are meant to be understood, not performed. This is the integration stage. Not where you force yourself to become vocal, but where you learn to become authentic. Authenticity is quiet, measured, self-respecting. It means expressing what matters when it matters in a way that honors your own boundaries. You begin choosing spaces that feel safer, people who feel calmer, conversations where your voice is met with curiosity instead of tension. And when you do speak, not loudly, not perfectly, but truthfully, you notice something unexpected. The world does not end. In fact, the world expands. Relationships become clearer. Self-respect grows stronger. The internal echo softens because it has finally been acknowledged. Integration does not erase silence. It transforms its meaning. Silence becomes a choice, not a reflex. A place of rest, not a place of hiding. The language of yourself becomes a steady hum beneath everything. A quiet confidence that your voice belongs, not because it is flawless, but because it is yours. And this realization becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. In the end, the unsaid words do not vanish. They return, not as regrets, but as reminders. They soften over time, aging like artifacts of a younger self who didn't yet know how to speak, who didn't yet understand their value, who didn't yet have the safety needed to hold their own truth. These echoes become part of the architecture of who you are. Not heavy, not haunting, but instructive. They show you the places where you once abandoned yourself and the places where you are learning to come back. There is a tenderness in acknowledging the person you were when you stayed silent. They were trying, they were protecting something. They were surviving with the tools they had. You begin to view your past quietness not with shame, but with compassion, because silence was never about weakness. It was about care, misdirected perhaps, but rooted in the desire not to lose love or connection. As you grow, the unspoken parts of your history become gentle teachers. They remind you to slow down when fear rises, to listen inward when confusion appears, to ask yourself what truth is trying to emerge, even if you're not ready to voice it aloud. Unsaid words become invitations, gateways to deeper understanding, mirrors reflecting the emotional landscapes you once walked alone. They remind you that carrying truth internally is not inherently wrong. Some truths are meant to stay inside until they feel safe to step out. Some truths are meant only for your own heart. And some truths, the ones that mattered most, arrive later in softer forms. They return as wisdom, as boundaries, as clarity in relationships, as a newfound ability to recognize what your younger self could not name. There comes a moment when you realize that the words you never said were not lost. They simply waited for you to grow into someone who could understand them. The echo softens. It no longer asks to be spoken. It asks to be acknowledged. It asks to be held with the same gentleness you offer others. And as you hold it, you begin to understand that silence and speech are not opposites. They are companions, both necessary, both sacred. Silence taught you how to listen. To others, yes, but also to the deep undercurrents of your own being. Speech teaches you how to bridge your inner world with the outer one. Together, they shape a more complete version of you. One that no longer abandons itself. One that no longer fears its own truth. One that moves through the world with quiet integrity. The lifelong echo of the words you were too afraid to say aloud becomes a testament to every moment you tried to protect your heart, and every moment you learn to open it again. There is no final revelation, no dramatic transformation, just a soft acceptance that what was unsaid shaped you, yes, but it doesn't define you. You are defined instead by your capacity to grow, to understand, to listen inward, and to return to the truths you once abandoned. Not to rewrite the past, but to honor it. And in this gentle honoring, the echo finally rests. It becomes not a shadow, but a guide. A quiet reminder of the person you were and the person you are becoming. A person who no longer fears the sound of their own truth.